she'll be the death of me. At least we'll both be numb. And she'll always get the best of me.
Good afternoon, everybody. We are your last session of the night. Before we start talking, a round of applause, please, for everyone that came out here today. This is really tremendous stuff. And thank you all for supporting it. I'm Rob Demillo. I'm one of the venture partners at SparkLabs Global. Sitting to the right of me here is Justin Kahn, who is currently a partner at Y-combinator. And prior to that was the founder of Twitch, which sold for $970 million. And prior to that, founder of JustinTV. And prior to that, the one I want to start with, Kiko calendars. So, Justin, when you were in college, or just shortly after you left college, you started something called Kiko calendars. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to be in Seoul. It's my first time. Before we started Twitch and JustinTV, my first startup was a really crappy startup.
There's no such thing.
Yeah, there is. It was called Kiko, and it was kind of like Google Calendar, so kind of like a advanced Outlook-style calendar that you could drag around appointments, around this like interface, and it was online on the web, which was kind of new for 2005. But it came out about 1 month before Google Calendar came out, and it was much worse in every way. So we started working on Kiko when I was in college. It was my first job, I guess. I was a college student, senior in college, and I thought, I want to start a startup. But I didn't know anything about how to start a startup. So me and a couple friends got together, and we said, okay, what are some ideas? Do we have any ideas? And we had seen Gmail, and we thought someone should make a really cool online calendar that could go along, like an accompaniment to Gmail. I think like hundreds of people thought of the same idea at the same time. But we started this calendar company from our dorm room, basically, and we kind of figured out how to put it together, program it by looking at different programming tutorials, or like JavaScript tutorials. And we made this calendar, and the one problem, though, was that we weren't really calendar users. I was a college student, and I only had class Monday and Wednesday. So I didn't really know why people wanted to use a calendar, or what features you wanted to use with your calendar. So we didn't really do a very good job of discovering like product market fit and what people wanted, because we weren't really building something for ourselves. And I think that ultimately was kind of why we weren't able to really get very much traction before Google Calendar came out.
So as interesting as how you started this, I want to talk about how you ended this, because I've never heard this before, and this is a great story.
Yeah, so I was telling Rob backstage, Kiko, we had this calendar, but we had no users. And we were able to get some seed funding from a firm that was just starting up called Y-combinator. It was the first batch that they did in 2005. And we were just amazed that anyone was funding startups by people who had no experience. And so we applied to Y-combinator. We got in, got some funding, and we worked on Kiko for about a year. And we learned a lot. Mostly we learned how to make, cool web apps, and what it meant to like be a startup and sit in a room, with you and your co-founder. We couldn't afford to like turn on air conditioning, and it was super hot. It's like I just hacked on our thing all day. Unfortunately, at the end of a year, we still had no customers and very little, no traction, and we were now out of money. So we decided to sell the company. That was more of a fantasy. We thought, hey, maybe we can sell the company and pay back our investors, and we won't have to be like hang our heads in shame and commit seppuku or something. And so we decided, okay, let's sell the company, but we didn't know how to sell a company. So I had this idea. A year ago, I'd seen this other company sell themselves on eBay. So I was like, okay, we're going to sell our company in an auction on eBay. I know that sounds like a funny idea. It was
like a toaster.
This is like when you're in, you guys don't play football here, right? But like, this is like there's 0 seconds left, there's 1 second left on the clock, and you have to throw a pass all the way down the field to score and win the game. Like, this was our last idea. We were out of money. We were like, we need we need to recoup some money for our investors because we felt really guilty. And we decided we'll sell it on eBay. So we listed it. And there was some posts on like TechCrunch and Reddit, and people were interested in it. And they, I talked to a lot of people who were actually called me, and they were like, "Oh, what actually comes with your you listing a calendar startup? What comes with it?" I was like, "Okay, well, you get our code base and our user base, and kind of walked them through how it worked, and we got a bid. Very surprising, $50,000. That was our reserve price, and
you had a reserve price?
We had a reserve price. It was like for under $50,000 is not worth it. So then, the morning of the auction, I was at a friend's apartment in New York. He didn't have air conditioning either. I was in my underwear at his computer, clicking refresh on the auction page, F5, F5, F5. And it went up to $85,000. I was very excited because this means we were selling it for more money than we had raised, so maybe I would get to make like $5,000. That was a lot to me back then. So I was $5,000. I was excited. I click refresh again, $100,000. That was pretty cool because now I'd be able to like afford to not move back in with my parents when we sold this company. And then I refreshed again. It was $113,000, then $150,000, $200,000, $213,000, and I was like, now I'm screaming. I'm like jumping up and down my underwear. My friends come out. They're like, "What are you talking? What are you doing?" And it went to $258,100. Like all these numbers are actually seared into my memory. So I remember every time I refreshed. But yeah, we thought we had invented. We were so excited. We thought we'd invented a new business model for startups. You just fail and then you sell yourself on eBay. So before when we were, right before this, 2 weeks before, when we were thinking about selling it, we were very discouraged, right? Our other friends had become consultants and bankers, and they were making money, and we had failed at doing this startup for a whole year, and we didn't have much to show for it. But afterwards, I was like, "Oh, okay, we each made $70,000 or something like that," and we were like, "Oh, that's like what we would have made if we went and got a consulting job." But we got it all at once, so it felt really good. It wasn't so bad, so we decided let's start another startup.
I'm not sure you could do that today, but it's good stuff. So when I first met you, it was in a bar in San Francisco called Swank or something, and you were deep into JustinTV. So for folks who don't know what that is, can you explain what it was first of all, and how you got there, and what made you think of it in the first place?
Sure. So we started our other startup. We didn't learn very many lessons.
Same guy? Was this the same guy?
Yeah. My co-founder Emmett and I were like, after we were undiscouraged, right? We were discouraged, then we were undiscouraged by the eBay sale. And we said, okay, let's start another startup. And the idea we had was called JustinTV. I was going to strap a camera to my head, and we were going to make our own live Big Brother-like reality TV show, 24/7. Just walk around San Francisco and do crazy shit and just figure out something that was entertaining and try to get an audience. We had no way of making money. We had no experience making video content or any sort of entertainment. And but we were like, hey, this is a crazy idea. And we went back to our investor, Y-combinator, to Paul Graham, and he said, him and one of the other partners at YC were like, well, I'll fund it just to see you make a fool of yourself. This is like what you can do if you're a rich guy. And so they gave us a check for $50,000, and we launched this startup. That was us creating our own live video 24/7 reality TV stream in San Francisco.
Which, by the way, sounds stupid now, or then, but now it's...
Yeah, now with Periscope and Meerkat, you guys are
probably
like,
doing
whatever,
it now.
what's the big deal? You're like, I'm doing that right now. No, it was a bad idea. It was a bad idea because, kind of like calendars, we had no experience with video, and so we really didn't know what we were doing. And it turns out, in order to make 1 minute of television, they shoot 60 minutes of content, right? In order to make that teaser video that they played at the beginning of SparkLabs, they had to shoot 3 months of these startups actually doing something to get 30 seconds of interesting content. So people would log on to our stream and say, "Oh, Justin, you're really boring. Why don't you go do something? Go get off your computer." because we were like engineers, so we're like sitting on our computer all day. You know, that's not really good content. And they were like, why don't you go do anything? But luckily, people realized, like the second piece of feedback that people gave us was, well, how do I create my own live video stream on the web? So we were like, a light bulb went off and we said, oh, ding ding, like let's let other people who might be more interesting than us create content. And in retrospect, a lot of people say, oh, you know, didn't you know that? Like, because YouTube had already like not just launched, but like sold for $1.5 billion. So like making YouTube for live video is kind of an obvious move, but we actually thought of that after we created JustinTV. So we were kind of like the remedial class of startups, you know, we're like the slow, the slow class. But we ended up turning our live video stream into a platform for anyone to broadcast anything live.
So did that lead directly to Twitch? Because I think what's important to sort of talk about here is the concept of a pivot in the first place. So you're pivoting from Twitch or from Justin into Twitch.
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing is that it did not lead directly to Twitch. I think, you know, what few of you remain here probably came to hear about Twitch, but that comes way later. It started off as like JustinTV, the live video platform for anyone to broadcast. And then we worked on that for like years, like 4 years. We spent just scaling that site. It grew to be pretty big. It was about 30 million people every month around the world. But it stopped growing at a certain point. People kind of got sick of like pet cams and, you know, social cam girl, you know, people just talking on camera. It wasn't very interesting. It was kind of like a lot of JustinTV streams. And so
Selfies.
my co-founders and I, we sat around and we were like, let's work on something that is a little bit like we think could be bigger than JustinTV, because anything that's flat on the internet is basically about to die. You know, nothing stays flat because the internet's a growth market. So if something's like flattening out, that's usually a really, really bad sign because there's more and more people who could be using our product coming online every day. And so what we decided to do was we looked at the categories of content that were happening on the site, and one of them was video games. And my co-founder, Emmett, actually was the one who thought to do this. He said, that's the only kind, StarCraft 2, you guys probably, all of you play StarCraft 2, I'm assuming. But StarCraft 2 had just come out, and he was watching these videos from Korea, actually, on YouTube. And he was like, this is the only kind of video online that I actually like. Like, he didn't like the pet cams, he didn't like the, like,
Cat videos?
He didn't like any of the content on JustinTV. He only liked the gaming content. And so we decided, let's work on that and see if we can grow the gaming section of JustinTV. And that kind of, we grew it, and we talked to we for the first time actually ever, we talked to the customers. We said, hey, why are you creating gaming content? And they said, oh, you know, I'm a big fan. I want to like reach more people. Can you help me like market my stream? Can you make it higher quality? I want to make money, so can you give me some of the ad revenue that you're showing on our content? And so we started building these things that broadcasters wanted, and we started going to the, you know, teams. A lot of the early ones were Korean players and teams, and we said, oh, how do you will you broadcast on our site? And then you know, slowly but surely we started growing every month. And then when we reached, you know, about 6 months into working on it, it was big enough that we spun it off into its own site. We called that Twitch.
So let me get this straight. By talking to the customer base, you actually built a product they wanted.
Yes, I know. It's very radical. Very radical. We, instead of just throwing random shit out on the internet, we actually talked to the people who were using our thing, and they said, do these things, and then we did those things, and we went back, and then they were like, oh, that's awesome. You actually did something we wanted. They would tell their friends. More people would broadcast who were influential gamers or teams or, you know, content creators, and then it kind of just grew organically like that. I mean, that's not organically at all. What am I talking about? That's like it grew because we were doing things that they wanted us to do.
You wacky kids, you.
I know.
All right, so flash forward to, you've now moved over, everyone, I guess, to Twitch, and JustinTV's gone, right, for more or less.
We shut down. Eventually, JustinTV, like we were right, anything that's flat is, you know, on the verge of falling off a cliff. it fell off that cliff, and then we shut it down.
So, okay, so now you're on Twitch. Did you guys have any idea what the growth curve was going to be? Because I remember that period, and it was pretty phenomenal. You started getting people, viewers from all over the place.
Well, I mean, Twitch started off as like, we had about 800,000, I think, gaming users every month on JustinTV that were watching gaming-related content.
I see.
And we said, at first, it was a very big internal argument because most people were, like, people said, this will never be a thing, at least not in America, right? People are not going to watch video game content. Now, Twitch is like, the last numbers that were announced is 100 million people every month. So that's not nobody. But basically, we started off with 700,000, 800,000 people, and we said if we grow 15% every month for the first month and 10% every month for the first 15% every month for the first year and 10% every month for the second year, then we'll be the biggest gaming media site on the internet.
You actually had that conversation. You set those goals.
Yeah, we set goals because half the company was like, "This is stupid," right? So we had to set the goals a priori, which I recommend to anybody who's like thinking about a pivot or wondering if their business is worth pursuing. We'll set goals that will convince you and your team beforehand, and then you'll know you achieved them or you didn't. And it's much more easy to hold yourself accountable and be honest with yourself if you don't like keep the target moving by like making up the goals as you go along.
So you had to do a couple of different sales jobs. You had to sell yourself into your own company, and then sell yourself to the people that gave you the money in the first place.
Yeah, well, really, Emmett was the advocate for Twitch. I have to give all the credit to him because he was the one who was like, "This is going to be a thing," and then we set these goals together. All the founders, we said, "Okay, in 6 months we want to see 15% monthly growth," and that would convince the company to say, "Oh, we should work on this," like as a main thing, right? So we set that, and it worked. I mean, he basically locked a small team in a room and worked on those goals, and we achieved them. And
then what was the business model for Twitch? Like once you realized where it was going?
You know, Twitch was the same business model as JustinTV. So it was advertising based, and then eventually we added subscriptions so broadcasters could give you like special features in their chat and on their channel if they in exchange for like $5 a month.
Okay. So we're going to flash forward again because there's a giant clock there, like looking at me. So now, what was it that you sold in 2014? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. About 15 months ago.
15 months ago. So what was it that attracted Amazon? What made Amazon go that one?
Well, I think Amazon recognized that the business was like a really good business. Since we sold the company, it's doubled in size. In kind of usage, and all the usage metrics are up. And it's just, like YouTube. I think, to me, the best businesses on the internet are ones where you enable someone to do something that they love, and they can make money from it, and they market it for you, right? So Twitch is like that, YouTube's like that, eBay's like that, Etsy's like that, Kickstarter's like that, where you have these people who are creators, and they create something, you help them with your platform, and then they bring an audience in, and that audience goes to like other things on your platform. And so, Twitch is like many, many other businesses in that sense. The way it monetizes might be slightly different. The usage profile of the user might be slightly different. The demographics of the users are different, but it's the same fundamental principle. And I think it's a really good business because the cost of content creation on Twitch is really low, right?
Yeah.
Like, there are guys who are streaming and have 30,000 people watching them concurrently, right? So that's probably over 100,000 people over the course of their stream. And it's one guy in his webcam, he's playing video games for 6 hours, right? Like if you made a TV, like think about our TV example, if you want to create 1 minute of television, you need to film 60 minutes of a film crew, and you have like, settings and stage, like there's a tremendous amount of cost by comparison.
And then Amazon has pretty much left Twitch alone, right? They haven't...
So since the Amazon acquisition, I've no longer been anything at Twitch except a fan
and
viewer.
User, yeah.
But I hear from my friends who are running the company that Twitch is, is in good hands, and they're super happy with it. That's what's going on.
That's a great story. And now you're on the other side of the table. Now you're at Y-Combinator. So what was that decision? Like,
yeah. So now I'm joined the evil side. I'm like Anakin Skywalker.
He has like a black thing that he wears. That's back.
I'm a VC, and people. The thing that I didn't realize, because all the VCs were lying to me the whole time. They said, oh, you know, this is such a hard job. It's like the easiest job in the world. All these people come to me. Yeah, everyone comes to me and they say, oh, I want to get funded. And then I just pick, oh, you guys are good. And then they do all the work and build a company. So what we do at Y-combinator, I think, you know, maybe some people here know, but
We used to call that land barons, but
yeah, exactly. We at YC, we try our best. We're entrepreneurs, you know, in all seriousness, we try our best to help companies. We find great companies. Lots of times they come to us. You know, companies like MimiBox, like Dino was just on stage, and we work with hopefully great entrepreneurs, and we help them the best we can, you know, with our experience building companies. And it's pretty fun because all my time doing startups, the 9 years that we were working at Kiko, JustinTV, Twitch, I never felt like I knew it, like I was an expert at anything, because I was always like doing something harder. If we were successful, we were doing something harder. If we were doing something unsuccessful, we were failing. I never felt like an expert. And then at YC, I realized, oh, I did learn a few things about early stage startups.
that's great. The giant clock is now red and like turning at me, but before
Like, get off the stage.
Before I go though,
People here are like, we need drinks.
I can stare people down that are staring in the back.
We're just going to
before we
stay
get off
here and
this,
have an open mic night now.
Stop it. Before we get off the stage, one tweet of advice, like 140 character piece of advice.
Quit your job and get started right now.
Yeah.
So I have one last question, and this truly is the last one. And you know, don't feel any pressure. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but of the companies that you saw today, did you see anyone that might be a fit for Y Combinator?
A lot of those companies probably would say they're too late stage for Y Combinator, right? Like, but I really liked. Okay, what was the first one? That was the YouTube. I was talking to them backstage. I forgot the name of it, but Next Makers, right? So I was giving them some feedback on the pitch, and I was like, you know, when you watch one of those pitches, you can only remember like 3 things, right? Like the audience is like looking at their phone, you know, you're daydreaming. It's very hard to like remember many things, but what I remembered from his pitch was they're a marketplace for YouTubers to connect with brands, right? For brands to find YouTubers to promote their thing. So that's one. The second thing was some demo of their product that was kind of long and had a video. And 3 was they had a growth graph that looked like this, and they had 80 grand last month in gross sales, right? That's pretty good. That looked pretty good to me. So he got the salient point across, which was the last one, I think. Yeah, I thought they looked good.
So there it is, guys. So 여기 한국 VC 분들 계시면은 Y Combinator 가기 전에 꼭 지금 투자를 하셔야 돼요. So anyway, well, thanks a lot, Justin, and thanks a lot, Rob. That's awesome.